Hi, everyone, and welcome to this book talk session, books that highlight Caribbean creators and characters, led by the amazing Dr. Lois Barker. Welcome, Lois. Just to say, Lois is a member of the Educator Collaborative, an incredible educator. She's a curriculum developer, and I just feel so honored to know you, to work and collaborate with you, and I'm really excited to hear your book talk session this morning. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Truly appreciate it. All right, so welcome everyone. My book talk will reveal a lot about my experience growing up as a Caribbean person in America, and it's called Reading Round the West Indies. And if you're Caribbean, you should kind of pick up on the title. It's a spin off of a very popular song by David Ruther, Rally Around the West Indies. And that song was really popular in the 90s when the West Indian cricket team was at its crowning glory in the sport. So I wanted to pay tribute to him, to the song, which was a major part of my childhood growing up. So reading around the West Indies, and I hope you have fun with me on this. And so, just a little background about myself. I grew up on a small, amazing Caribbean country of Grenada. It's at the southern tip of the Caribbean. I lived there for about 14 years before migrating to the beautiful yet cold Syracuse, New York. Growing up in Grenada, attending schools in Grenada, we were surrounded by storytelling, which was a huge component of our culture. And a lot of the books that we read in our classrooms were by Caribbean authors. When I moved here at 14, I could not find anything, not a YA book, not an adult read, necessarily centering a Caribbean voice or written by a Caribbean author. It wasn't until I started my women's lit class in community college, I was handed a book by Jamaica Kincaid and was told this should make you feel at home. And while I love Jamaica Kincaid is not the only Caribbean voice, right, that I wanted to be exposed to. And so it wasn't until maybe my 30s that I started finding or seeing more and more beautiful Caribbean stories, Caribbean voices being highlighted at the mainstream level in American publishing, right? Going to an American bookstore and seeing different Caribbean authors, especially picture books. It really made my heart jump for joy. And so a lot of the books that I'm going to share will center a lot on Caribbean joy. And the first set of books that we're going to talk about, the biggest thing that brings a lot of Caribbean people joy would be Carnival. All right. And so some of you might be familiar with Carnival in Brazil. It's kind of similar with the costumes and the music and all the pageantry. Or you might have seen people like Rihanna go to her country in Barbados and have, like partake in her costumes. And in her country, their carnival is called Crop Over. So you might have seen Rihanna in her beautiful costumes at the parades, dancing in the streets, right? Or you might have seen people like Nicki Minaj and Ciara go to Trinidad and Tobago and celebrate their carnival, which is around February. So we do carnival also because of how we migrate. If you are in big cities like Miami, like Brooklyn, right? Like Toronto, if you're on the other side of the pond in the UK, you're in Notting Hill, we have our festivals there. We bring home with us wherever we go. And so we will have carnival there. I'm in Houston right now, and we have a small one here in Houston, but it's not at the large scale as like Caravana in Toronto or Labor Day on the Parkway in New York. But anyways, so it's really, really great. And we're going to start off with Carnival. If you're from the Caribbean, you love Carnival. If you're coming to the Caribbean, you have to love Carnival. And so Carnival is not just about the pageantry, the costumes. It's a lot of storytelling within those costumes, right? You have the pretty masks with the feathers and the sequins, but you also have different types of masks in the Carnival, and they tell different historical They portray different historical events. So you have Jab Jab that takes part in Carnival, and that's when people are covered in all black. Some people use charcoal, some people use tar, some people use mortar oil, some people use black paint. And Jab Jab, it's really big in my country. It celebrates emancipation, right? Um, and it's a daybreak event celebrating the emancipation. It celebrates freedom, and it's also used as an opportunity to provide political commentary, speak out against those in politics not doing what they're supposed to, and all of those things. And so these picture books touch on the beauty of Carnival, the elements of Carnival. And Nadia Elhorn, she is a Canadian based author. She's of Jamaican heritage. And she has a series of 4 books. But the two I wanted to pull out that really tie into Carnival and the spirit of it is Malika Carnival Queen and Malika's Costume. So, Malika Carnival Queen, it's really about the Carnival Queen is at Carnival, you have different groups that tell different stories with their costumes, and the Carnival Queen is like at the front of the parade, and she highlights, like she's the biggest costume, right? She leads the parade, and she, really highlights the story being told by that particular band. And so Malika's Carnival Queen, that story tells the story of Malika, and her father. She doesn't know who her father passed away a very long time ago. He traveled to Canada as a migrant farm worker. And she always has this dream about this man with a basket of fruit. And she thinks, this dream must be about her dad. And so she tells this to her mom. She tells this to her grandmother. And they decide that Malika should know a lot more about her father. What did he do? The things that brought him joy. And so they drive off to this farm where her father picked fruit. And they had a festival, a harvest. And so they allow Malika to be the queen, right? The festival queen. And she brings in that carnival culture to the farm and to the harvest festival. So that was really a great way of meshing 2 cultures together. Malika's Costume is like the first book in that series where Malika talks about her mom being away in Canada, and she's relying on her mom to send money back so she can put her costume together because it's carnival time, and she needs her feathers, she needs her sequins, and her mom isn't able to do that. And so it's really a story of perseverance, creativity, and community, with Malika and her grandma trying to find different ways of putting this beautiful costume together. The next story is called The Carnival Prince by Daniel J. O'Brien. He's from Trinidad and Tobago. And this one has a little bit more folklore into it. This one was different. It talks about carnival season in Trinidad and Tobago. And then here comes this boy, right? This mythical creature. And he's trying to figure out what is this fun parade. And so with the mythical creatures, looking at the humans enjoying this parade, he easily joins the parade, and nobody thinks twice about it because of the different costumes and the symbolism of those costumes. And so, not to spoil it, he gets to be a part of the parade, has a good time, and no one notices the difference between these mythical creatures and the people in the parade. So that one is another amazing read. Next, we have The Masquerade Dance. The Masquerade Dance is written by Carol Mitchell. And Carol Mitchell is from the beautiful country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And it follows this young boy excited to see the masquerades and the different bands again doing the different the dances. And so he's at carnival, and then he's hearing the drums, he's hearing the different music, he's seeing the different groups dance to the drums and singing different songs. And this story is really fascinating because you're going to see a lot of indigenous Caribbean culture, African culture, and European culture all come together in some of the more traditional groups that participate and sing songs, the costumes that show up during Carnival. And finally, we have Carnival Girl by Andrea Cook, and she's from Trinidad and Tobago. And this book is part of a series with Molly. And so this one, it's like for much younger readers, and it tells the story of Molly Morningstar. She's excited to participate in Carnival, and it's the parade day, and rain starts falling, and she's like, "What am I going to do? I'm supposed to participate in the kiddie parade. I'm supposed to win this. My costume looks good. The rain needs to stop." And so, you follow Molly hoping that everything, stops. And so she can get out there and join the parade and have a good old time. So if you want to learn more as an adult about Carnival, you can read these books. If you want, if you are of Caribbean descent and you've never had the joy of Carnival or bringing your children to a Carnival, you can start with these books to get them, familiar with the experience. And then it makes more sense when they attend one of these events and they can enjoy it even more. I love Carnival. All right, so this set of books, I use the title "There's Natural Mystic Flowing Through the Air." That's a lyric from a Bob Marley song. He's one of my favorite artists, and this book deals a lot about folklore and aspects of religion, right? And so Tracy Batiste, this whole slide is dedicated to Tracy Batiste because I will be honest, she was one of the first authors that I really fell in love with, that captured a major element of my culture. I'm not from Trinidad and Tobago. However, most of the Caribbean islands do share the same similar histories when it comes to certain mythological or spiritual creatures. And so in her series, she has the picture book Looking for a Jumbie. And then she has this 3-part series, The Jumbies, Rise of the Jumbies, and The Jumbie God's Revenge. And so the Jumbie, depending on where you're from, a Jumbie is like a spirit, right? It's this mythological creature. It's a spirit. Sometimes Jumbies can be good, Jumbies can be bad, Jumbies can be scary, Jumbies can be friendly, depending on what you offer them. And so in the first book, which is for younger readers, I would say, Looking for Jumbie, it tells the story of Naya. She sets out on this nighttime adventure to find a Jumbie because she doesn't believe, like her mother says, "Oh, Jumbies aren't real. They're just stories, right? They're just tales." And she was like, "I don't know. I don't believe you." So, she gets a little bit nosy. She wants to prove her mama wrong. And so she starts going out there and trying to find one. And she believes that they're real. And she's hoping that she's going to find a nice, friendly one, maybe. And then she realizes that there are different types of Jumbies. So she learns about the different types of Jumbies. The other series follows Corinne Lemaire, and she's not afraid of anything. She's this brave girl, nothing's afraid of, nothing scares her. Sorry. And then we learn about there's boys who tease her, and then you have she's not really afraid of them, but she's strong, she stands up. And then her parents tell her Jumbies aren't real, again, they're tricksters, you want to stay away maybe, and different types of things, kind of similar to the first story where parents you hear the tale because it's really prominent in your culture, but then your parents try to dissuade you, like, no, these things, if you see a Jumbie, they're scary, stay away, blah, blah, blah. And then you have other people saying that they're not real. And so she decides that, she wants to learn more about, this ancient magic, this ancient culture. And she goes on this quest. And in one of these books, she defeats a Jumbie god. In the next one, another Jumbie is summoned, and she has to she goes on these different quests to defeat bad Jumbies. So it's really cool. And like I said, Tracy is from Trinidad. I do know in some school districts you have to be careful with these books because it's magical and mythical or whatever. But they're really fun. And I think that what I like about these mythical figures is that in a lot of different cultures you will see similar things, and so it's great in your classroom when you share, here's what a jumbie is in the Caribbean. You might have students who are like Native American, that we have something similar, and so on and so forth. And so it makes a really great conversation in the classroom. These are more uh-oh. These are more YA reads of for the big kids. And Evie Zovoy, she wrote American Street and her latest book, Skin. American Street is not necessarily centered on a mythical creature or some, but there is a spiritual figure in the book that uh, interacts with the main character. So our main character is she moved from Haiti, and she's brand new to America, and she's trying to get acclimated. You have different elements of like police brutality, and there are different elements in that story. But as she's going through difficult decisions and she's encountering really like big turning points in the story, there is this spiritual figure that pops up. So I wanted to include that there. A lot of the times growing up in the Caribbean, they will tell you that obia is bad, or voodoo is bad, but it's, it is a religion and it's practice. And so we like to say the colonizers did a very good way of making African and indigenous elements of the spiritual world seem something to be really bad. And I like how Edie kind of reclaims that and brings it to us in a very good, in a good light. And then in the latest book, Skin, got me really, really excited because all right, I'm running out of time, but let me see how far I can get talking about Skin. In Skin, she tells the story of two girls. These two girls are what we call sukiyas. Sukiyas, in some countries they're called sukiya, in other countries they're called ligarus. So the ligaru, anyone can be a ligaru or a sukiya, right? What happens is your skin, like you transform and you shed your human skin, you travel in a ball of light, and then you feed off the blood of others, kind of like a vampire in a way. That's the closest equivalent. But you see this balls of light traveling, and then they usually hide their human skin in a dark place when they transform. And so when Evie wrote this book, I was like, no way, no way did she write about this figure that our elders would tell us about and scare the living daylights out of us. So at nighttime, I would see like a firefly. I'm like, oh my God, it's a ligaru, and like run away and hide. But anyway, she puts a really nice spin on this story and doesn't have the Sukiya necessarily as this um, evil creature or whatever, but it tells a story of two girls, right? Two different from two different families dealing. One is fully aware that she's a Sukuya, and the other one is not. And she's thinking she has this skin condition. She's burning up. She needs all these different creams. She doesn't know how to deal. And not only are they dealing with this supernatural aspect, they're also dealing with elements of like colorism. There's like family dynamics. There's trauma. There's all sorts of other issues happening, but it's told with this beautiful incorporation of the Sukiya. And so I was really excited when she wrote this, and it's written in verse, so it flows well. It's really enjoyable, and it's one of those books that you could use bits and pieces from, and like I said, you could pair it with other things because it has these other elements, or you could just look at the mythical side of it. When you're looking at what is a Sukiya, what is a Ligaru. Yes, so those are that. All right. So mystery, right? Patricia Sargent, she's of Grenadian descent. She writes her young novels, her for younger readers under the name of Olivia Matthews. And this series is based is a mystery series. And it all stems from this local bakery, Spice Isle Bakery in Brooklyn, New York, right? So these different mysteries are popping up, and this young girl who works in the bakery, she has to go solve these. And the title, they're all based off of like local foods. And so against the current rolls, that's a favorite pastry in the Caribbean. So it's like a nice pastry dough, and you can roll currants in it. Um, and it's really sweet and delicious. The next one is hard dough, like nice warm bread, and then cocoa drop. That's a nice snack. Okay, we love a cocoa drop. It's like it's also like coconut bread, but kind of sweet. Sometimes you have raisins in it, sometimes you don't. So I do recommend going to a Caribbean bakery and getting all of those. You want currant roll, you want homemade bread, and you want coconut drop. All good stuff. And then you can go read those books while you're eating those, because it's like mystery with a hint of Caribbean flavor, because it's centered in Brooklyn. And again, the characters are of Caribbean descent. And moving on to the younger readers, the really, really younger readers. When I had my daughter, I had my oldest daughter, Ava, when I was 25. And I was like, okay, your parents are Grenadian. How can we teach you things about Grenada? And I was looking for really well done Caribbean ABC books. And I would just find really generic ones written by non Caribbean folk. And it would be like, C is for coconut, B is for beach. I'm like, yeah, duh, we know this already. And so now we are finding more and more books that are very well thought out, and they're actually written by people from the Caribbean or of Caribbean descent. And so they know the culture well, and they can really pick elements that kids can read about and feel like they belong, right? Feel like they know about their parents, they know about their ancestors, and they can speak on it, right? And so the first one, C is for Carnival, written by Yolanda T. Matthews. She was born in Guyana, and she also has Bayesian heritage. And that book covers a plethora of things. You learn about carnival, you learn about emancipation, you learn about the steel pan, a beautiful instrument originated in Trinidad and Tobago. So there's like lots of different elements. It's not just the kitty elements per se, like C's for coconut. It tells the history. You learn about the cuisine, the music, other stuff. The same is true for ABC's Where Are We? The West Indies by Ayanna Francis. She's from Trinidad and Tobago. And so that book does the same thing, like Yolanda, gives you a good idea of various islands. In her book, she does cover way more countries, and she highlights really cool attractions in different countries, like Dun Falls in Jamaica, different beaches in the Bahamas. So you learn like a little bit about the geography and the nature of the islands. And finally, as I went down my last minute, I wrote a book. During the pandemic, I sat down and I was like, you know what? I felt like something was missing when I had Ava, and I want to give back. Like, this was my project. How can I fill that gap for other parents who felt the same way I did, looking for a book about Caribbean culture? And so in this book, it tells a story about Ava sharing her love of the Caribbean to her baby brother Clay. And what we tried to do in this book is highlight like indigenous people, the Arawaks. We tried to highlight major historical figures who led independence and led others to freedom, like Julian Fiddle in Grenada, Queen Nanny in Jamaica, and other countries, right? We try to highlight figures like Usain Bolt. We try to highlight cuisine, right? Oildom, the national dish of Grenada. We also try to put a little musical elements. So we talked about soca, we talked about fit. We like to party in the Caribbean, and the steel pan. The steel pan is a musical instrument made of drums in Trinidad and Tobago, and so that's included. So we try to cover as much islands as possible. Food. We even talked about, I kid you not, the liguru, the sukuya, kind of like Evie's Oh Boy. So if you have a teen, you can get Evie's book and they read about that. And then if you have a baby, you get Ava's Caribbean ABCs and they go together. And so this brings me to the end of my book talk. There's so much more beautiful Caribbean books out there, but that's all I could share with you.
Thank you, Lois, so much. Basically, what everyone is saying, both here and I'm seeing on chat as well, is Now we have way too many books that we have to purchase if we don't have them already. I also loved, I echo what a lot of folks were saying of, I loved how you not only are sharing books with us, but you were sharing culture, history. I loved you tagging countries that different authors are from. There's a way where some of, at least in my US education, the Caribbean was just this monolithic, here's just one group of all people. And I appreciate how you sharing these books and telling these stories are helping to teach me more about the cultural differences. So thank you, Lois, so much. This was a truly fantastic session.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for all of you, if you have enjoyed this session, well, again, why am I saying if? Because you enjoyed this session with Lois, please pay the joy forward by going to gathering.theedcollab.com/charity. And you can learn more about our two charities from today and pay the joy forward there or somewhere else as well, too. And coming up next in our following session, we have a workshop, Reclaiming Educator Voice and Passion, Professional Organizations Matter, being led by Dr. Cindy Gerwin and Markeisha Tisby, both incredible educators, and they also have current or past roles in professional organizations. Cindy is a former president of IRC, the Illinois Reading Council, and Markeisha is currently on the board, as is Lois, with TELA in Texas. And they will talk about ways that professional organizations like those can help us get our passion back. And use our voices, and a following book talk session led by Janet Sarchen, books that highlight AAPI creators and characters. So thank you all for joining us today, and please have a great rest of your gathering.